Evan Knappen.
And I'm Teddy Knappen.
And welcome to Gun Lawyer. So I received a letter that I want to talk about that has an important issue in these times. But before I even get to that, I just want to make an announcement because the Supreme Court of the United States just accepted a gun case. So this is very exciting because we're now going to get another Supreme Court decision. And this case is the Woolford versus Lopez case out of Hawaii, which will most likely impact New Jersey as well. Because the key issue here is sensitive places, specifically Hawaii's sensitive place law that requires express permission from a property owner to carry a handgun on private property that is open to the public. Now, New Jersey has that same type of sensitive place. However, New Jersey, we won on that one in the court challenge so far, in which the requirement that originally stated you had to have permission before you went on any private property, whether open to the public or not, New Jersey split it and said, no, if it's open to the public, you don't need that prior permission or a sign hanging on the building that says, we love guns, or, come on in. But in Hawaii, the court upheld actually needing permission from a property owner for property that is open to the public. So, for example, in Hawaii, if you have a carry license, you can't walk into a 7-Eleven with your gun unless you have express permission to go on that private property that's open to the public. In New Jersey, that is not the case. In New Jersey, you can go into 7-Eleven, but in New Jersey, you can't go into private property that is not open to the public. So if you're going to visit your friend, well, your friend better give you permission before you carry your gun there. But what makes this exciting is that the court, hopefully in addressing this issue, will give us a framework to evaluate other sensitive places, and it may very well have the impact of annihilating most, if not all, of New Jersey's sensitive places, at least with a test to test their constitutionality. And by the way, the Hawaii challenge has brought it also, in their sensitive places, banned guns on beaches, parks, and restaurants that serve alcohol, just like New Jersey has those. So we'll see how far the Supreme Court goes in its analysis and if it sets up a framework for challenging sensitive place laws that we're currently in the fight with the state of New Jersey. Our great state association, the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, has the ongoing federal litigation challenging New Jersey's carry killer bill, and this should be of great benefit in our fight for Second Amendment rights.
Out of curiosity, if
sure,
for the sake of argument, St. Justice Thomas is listening, gun lawyer, what would be the best frame?
Well, that is a very it's a very difficult question as to how they will structure the test. Now, one thing that would be just awesome is, but I don't think it would fly necessarily, is they just say, hey, these are the only sensitive places that are sensitive places, and make it crystal clear that none of the others count. But I don't think they're going to do that. They're probably going to try to structure some type of test, and that's something that we're going to have to wait and see. I can't even put forward a test at this time that would cut the bill, but that's why the Supreme Court justices get the big bucks. And let's hope they put a test out there that makes it pretty narrow as to where our rights get restricted. So we'll see how that works. But similar vein, we have a letter here, and this letter is from Chuck. And what Chuck says is it legal to carry and use a stun gun or pepper ball dispensing air gun? I have a concealed carry, but considering other options. We are in the process of a church security assessment. And I was thinking this, and pepper spray would be a good option, less expensive, requiring less training and risk, if used in a less than appropriate manner. As I note, I enjoy your podcast weekly, and I'm a U.S. Law Shield member. Thank you and peace. Okay, Chuck, thanks. So, as far as the stun gun pepper ball deal, we're still stuck under the current case law that makes it a problem to preemptively arm yourself for self-defense outside the home with a stun gun or pepper ball type device. And you can possess them, you can have them in your home, but outside your home, and here we're talking about in a church. So unfortunately, until we get it acknowledged officially in a case, I can't advise just carrying those around because you have a problem under NJS 2C 39.6, and it is subsection D specifically regarding preemptively arming oneself for self-defense outside the home. So beware of that. Now, on pepper spray, you would be allowed to carry 3/4 of an ounce or less, which is a rather small container. That is the only pepper spray that's exempted. But if you're going to talk about church security and we want to talk about lethal security, can you carry your handgun at your house of worship, whether it's a church, a synagogue, mosque, whatever? Can you do that? And the answer is yes. Houses of worship are not a sensitive place under New Jersey's carry killer law. So you are allowed to, at least you're not prohibited from, having your legal carry gun that you have a permit for at house of worship. And if you're going to participate in that house of worship's security, that's up to you, but you would be allowed to carry your gun. However, the danger or the trap you have to watch out for is, since many houses of worship also happen to have schools, Sunday schools, Saturday school, whatever the school is, where it's part of that facility, then that section that is the school takes on the sensitive place designation of a prohibited sensitive place for a school. So if there's a separate part of the building or a separate room where the school is, but in the general congregation area that's not a school ground, you can carry there, but you can't go into the school part. So if the security team wants to be able to lawfully carry in the part of the house of worship that is a school, then we have to overcome two prohibitions. One is New Jersey's sensitive place, but the other is a law that is under NJS 2C 39.5E. And this also can set a trap for the unsuspecting when basically dealing with any school property. So New Jersey sensitive place says you can't have your gun at a school. However, if you pull into a parking lot of a sensitive place, New Jersey says, oh, well, you can unload it, lock it, unload it in a box in your car, and you're okay if you do that. However, that would satisfy, even though that would satisfy the sensitive place prohibition at a school, it does not satisfy the second and other prohibition, which is found under 39.5E. And what that says is any person who knowingly has possession any firearm in or upon any part of the buildings or grounds of any school, college, university, or other educational institution without written authorization of the governing officer of the institution is guilty of a crime. So if you park on the grounds of the school, even to pick up your child or to go into the school, and you use the exemption found under sensitive places, that will not cover you for the other school property prohibition. So be wary. It is a trap. It can be a big go-foo. But let's say you're in the church and you want to have your security team be able to go into the school. Well, there is a way to work around that. So as you can see, as we just read, if there's permission, written authorization of the governing officer of the institution, then you would overcome the 39.5E prohibition. However, how do you overcome the sensitive place prohibition? Because now we're talking not just being in the parking lot, but we're talking about actually being in the school itself, in the house of worship. Well, for that, we go to the sensitive place law, which you'll find under NJS 2C 58-4.6, but go there to subsection E. And what it says is, nothing in this act shall be construed to prohibit the holder of a valid and lawfully issued permit, in other words, carry permit, who is lawfully authorized to provide security at a place enumerated in those sensitive places, and from carrying a firearm, whether openly or concealed, provided that authorization is set forth in writing and only to the extent permitted by the entity responsible for security at the place in question. So if you get written authorization covering you for the first prohibition that we talked with, then if you get that written authorization, that can cover you here, but there's one added thing you have to do. You have to be able to be lawfully authorized to provide security. So who's lawfully authorized to provide security in New Jersey? Those that have a SORA card. So you'll need, if you're on the church or synagogue or mosque house of worship security team, and you want to fully have the exemptions apply to you, you're going to need to have SORA and your carry permit so that you can then be exempted with the written authorization as we've discussed. So that will give you the ability to have the full access to those grounds without being in violation of either school or other sensitive place prohibitions. So thanks for a great question, Chuck. And I also have a letter here, and this is from Jay. Jay says, I listen to your blogs regularly. I want to really thank you for the service you provided guarding our constitutional rights. I had 2 questions, but he actually has 3 questions, so I don't know, but we'll do all 3. Number 1, are cross-shoulder straps allowed as a holster for concealed carry in New Jersey? So I'm assuming what you mean by cross-shoulder straps, meaning a shoulder holster, you know, the rig that you carry essentially under your arm, and it has the straps that you put both your arms through. Some are made even just for a one arm through where you have it. And the answer to that would be yes, as long as the holster itself stays concealed and qualifies as a holster that covers the trigger and the body of the firearm and secures it properly. As long as the holster part does that and you have it concealed, then having it in a shoulder holster, we'll just generally use that term, would be fine. It's the holster itself that has to meet the criteria to be a legal holster. And then, of course, you have to keep it concealed, so keep that jacket on over that shoulder holster. 2, it says private residences in New Jersey with no sign saying firearms prohibited. And the answer, as I discussed previously, is no. If it's a private residence with no sign, you're going to have to get, consent verbally, or else you're not allowed. Even if you're invited into the private residence, that prohibition on private property that's not open to the public is still in effect. And then the other question is, are trigger locks considered locks? What about a trigger lock in a gun safe? Well, trigger locks are locks, but the question really is, if your gun has a trigger lock, is that the same as having it in a locked container? No, because there the container itself has to be locked. So if you're using a trigger lock, yeah, that can provide that your gun is locked. But what is often found in these exemptions is the need not just to have it locked, but to have it in a locked container. That's what's going to give you the maximum coverage, and that's the point. So if you want to have a trigger lock and have it in a locked container, feel free. If you want to have it locked in your safe, okay, you can have a trigger lock on the gun in your safe, but the trigger lock itself, generally speaking, is not going to get you the exemptive coverage that you're most likely looking for. Now, here's something that caught my attention that I found to be very interesting. This was an article in Ammo Land, and I really like it because it actually gave me an argument about something that has been bothering me that we've discussed before. And this is an article called "Why Gun Grabbers Say Gun Violence Instead of Addressing Real Problems" by Dan Woos. Now, this is an excellent point, and I want you all to let this sink in. You know, we've talked about the propaganda use of the term gun violence and how it's really criminal violence and how it's a propaganda term. But what I really, really like about this article is it took it to another level, which really kind of gave me a bit of an epiphany here. So I really want to thank Dan for pointing this out. Let me read a quote here from this article. "To vilify guns, the political left has made it a point to attach human traits to firearms for the purpose of animating them. They do this as often as possible. They understand that when a human element is involved, causality and intention can be used for emotional leverage. In other words, by attaching the word violence to the word gun and attaching the word assault to the word rifle, the anti-gunner can peddle the notion that the firearm has behavioral tendencies." Brilliant, brilliant. That's exactly it. In other words, what the antis are doing is anthropomorphic. They are acting and creating anthropomorphic qualities to a gun. So when we're talking about something being anthropomorphic, we're talking about giving something human characteristics or traits that it wouldn't have. So children love anthropomorphic cartoons, talking bears, talking rabbits, etc. Bears and rabbits don't talk, but if you give them human qualities, they do. That is a form of anthropomorphic trait giving right there, giving it the human element. So by doing that to the term violence and taking that term violence and attaching it to a gun, guns are not violent. People are violent. Violence is a human attribute, not a gun attribute. Guns don't go around acting violent. People do. So this is a brilliant part. Same with so-called assault firearms in New Jersey. Firearms don't assault anyone. People assault. So this is the trick. This is the propaganda tactic. This is a technique used by the Second Amendment oppressors to use the anthropomorphic term. And when they do, folks, call them out on it. I know from now on, I will. Because once you can identify the propaganda technique, once you can call them out on it, you cut them off at the knees. Tell them, do not add human characteristics to an inanimate object. That is false and a lie. And you're treating us as children by trying to make bears talk. Okay? It's not how it works. Excellent point. Keep it in mind when dealing with those propaganda terms put out by the Second Amendment oppressors. And now let me mention our good friends at We Shoot. So We Shoot is a range in Lakewood where Teddy and I both shoot. Indoor range, great place. We love We Shoot. And this week, We Shoot has some really great specials. They're offering the Sig Sauer P3220 Spectre Comp Blackout. I got to tell you, folks, this is one really cool looking gun. You got to see what this Spectre Comp Blackout looks like. It's really hot. I'm digging it, definitely. And they have it at We Shoot, and it is a showstopper. It has an integrated compensator, laser engraved grip, full blackout finish, built for performance and style. They also have a beautiful Smith & Wesson 640. That's the J-frame, but it's in .357 mag. It's stainless. It is simplicity. It is one of my favorite pocket rockets, and this one is really beautiful, has engraving, gorgeous grip. Check out that Smith 640 that We Shoot has. They're also offering a Riley Defense RAK-47. It's an American-made AK with forged trunnions, wood furniture, and that iconic 7.62 by a 39 punch. And it is Jersey compliant. Of course it is. And you can have a Jersey compliant AK because that's the only guns that We Shoot would ever sell are completely compliant under Jersey law. So check out those guns. Check out We Shoot. You can go there. You can get some great range time in, get some awesome training. It is the place where I got my certification, Teddy got his certification, and you can get your certification. Check out We Shoot, conveniently located right off the Parkway. It is really a fantastic range, and I know you'll love it. I also want to mention our great state association. Like I said, they're battling right now in that case on the Carry Killer Challenge and also challenging the so-called assault firearm law that is a term actually in New Jersey law, believe it or not, a term in New Jersey law that has given human characteristics to a gun. And it's in our statutes, making talking bears as a prohibition. That's right. That's what Jersey's done. And they've done it as well when you think about it with ghost guns. Ooh. Well, what's a ghost? Ghost's a human spirit. Let's give it human spirit ghost characteristics like Casper, back to childhood cartooning to grab that emotional response. Once you see the light on this, it's clear how the antis play this game. But our state association is on it. They are absolutely on it, and we are fighting the good fight, and we're making progress. So you need to be a member of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs. Make sure that you are. Go to anjrpc.org. Go to anjrpc.org. Join today and be a member. And let me mention, make sure I do, my book, New Jersey Gun Law. It's the Bible of New Jersey gun law. Make sure you get and have my book. It'll help you navigate through the treacherous waters of New Jersey that constantly lay out potential go-foos and other traps to disenfranchise us of our gun rights and to continue the movement of gun rights oppression. Don't fall for it. Protect yourself. Get a copy of my book. Just go to evannappin.com and order your copy today. You'll be glad you did. It's over 120 topics, all question and answer, made easy to understand. That's how I wrote it. It's a labor of love, folks. Get your copy today. Teddy, what do you have for us?
Well, as we know, press checks are always free. And anytime you hear the anti-gunners try to run cover and they say, we don't want to take your guns. No, that's not what we want to do. That's not what we want. It's always common sense. They always sell it with common sense. Well, if you ever want to look towards the future, if the left were ever left with unvetted power, so where they had, Supreme Court, they had the House, they had the presidency, what would that look like? Look to Canada, as they have just kicked off the disarmament going through. They finally did it, the madmen. They established the program where they were tackling assault-style firearms, even though the list is about over 1,500 types of guns, so practically anything that falls under assault-type firearms. They are now going through and doing mandatory. I love the term they always do. It's a voluntary program. Although if you do not participate, you will be unable to seek compensation, and you will have to dispose of the prohibited firearm by exporting, deactivating, or turning them into police without compensation. But it's voluntary. It's just quite disgusting, and this is right off of the Canadian website of the public safety aspect of their, which, it's Canada News, state run. But from the BC Firearms Academy in Canada, they list off the wonderful price ranges they offer for firearms if you turn it in.
I'm sure it's quite generous, huh?
Oh, absolutely. So if you have a tactical style 22 rifle, it's about $150 to $300. For pistol calibrate carbines, tactical rimfire, or certain shotguns, that is $400 to $800. For high range, being AR-15 variants, Ruger Mini 14s, or other military-style semi-automatics, it's about $1,000 to $1,052. And in the special cases, they said Alexander Arms Off-Burnt.
Yeah, well, Alexander Arms is a manufacturer, yes.
I don't know this particular gun they're referencing, but they said, you must call the program and we'll determine compensation. But what they have from their ranges, it goes up to $1,520 max.
Wait, remember, that's in Canadian.
I know, monopoly money, so it...
Yeah, so, yeah. Well, it is not surprising. It's really a shame. And they keep running these gun boondoggles like their registration scheme they spent billions on and then trashed it. And I bet you a number of the provinces are not going to stand for it. The conservative provinces that actually want to even try to have Canadians have their so-called rights. But, man, one thing to be thankful for is that we're not there yet, although they're trying to do it in America as well. Believe me, if the gun rights suppressionists had their way, they would try to do it here, and I'm sure they'll try to point to Canada as they do Australia for the same, and the formerly Great Britain. This is what they do. So we got to keep an eye on what they do around the world. But of course, we're here, and the one thing is what we're blessed with, which none of these other countries have, is an actual Second Amendment right, which is a guarantee of our right to keep and bear arms. Hey, let me tell you about the GoFu. This week's GoFu is from a case that's actually in the news, and this is right out of NJ.com, Bergen County. SWAT team called to New Jersey hospital after man pulls out handgun. Well, what happened here? Well, a hospital in Bergen County was placed on lockdown after a man entered the intake area with a handgun, and guess what he did? He took out his gun, quote, had the handgun removed from his person and slammed it on the table. Slammed it, folks. Yeah, right, slammed it. The hospital was placed on a divert status and a shelter-in-place order was implemented. Well,
Silver.
Yeah. So what?
the
What?
actual-
And
that's the
SWAT,
actual
Bergen
code. That's-
SWAT. Yeah, Bergen SWAT, and guess what? This man removed his 9mm holster prior to intake, prior to a physical exam, and it says right in the article, officers later determined he had a carry permit, but he failed to produce proof of it. But he had one, and he's charged under New Jersey's sensitive locations. Okay, look, folks, medical facilities is a sensitive location. You can't bring your gun there. So he brought his gun there, and then he took it out. I guess even we could speculate that he thought maybe it would be best just to remove it so that it wouldn't be a problem. But that's not what you do. And then, of course, when police come, you're required to show your permit. And if you don't have your permit on you, that itself is an offense in Jersey. So now he's charged with sensitive place violation, 3rd degree, looking at up to 5 years in state's prison. And he's charged with the failure to have his permit on him, which is a disorderly persons offense, looking at up to 6 months in county jail. So it's a go-foo. So what do you do if you end up where you realize you're in a sensitive place and you shouldn't have your gun? Make an excuse and get out. Get out and secure it properly. Don't go pulling it out in the sensitive place. Talk about a total go-foo. Now all you've done is create enormous problems for yourself, and it is a classic go-foo. Don't think there's going to be anybody being reasonable here. You need to know the sensitive places. You have to be completely conscious about where these sensitive places are. And if you find yourself that you happen to be in one, take the remedial action. Get out and lock it in your car. Every one of your cars, if you have a gun and you carry the carry, better have a lockbox in it. You better have one. It's part of your gear, your permanent travel gear in your vehicle, so that you can secure properly under sensitive place. You end up going to a restaurant and you see they're serving alcohol there. Whoops! Get back to your car. Secure it, okay? And keep your mouth shut. You have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. So, don't be stupid. And that's what go-foos are, unfortunately, based a lot on ignorance. This is Evan Nappen and Teddy Nappen reminding you that gun laws don't protect honest citizens from criminals. They protect criminals from honest citizens.
Gun Lawyer is a Counterthink media production. The music used in this broadcast was managed by Cosmo Music, New York, New York. Reach us by emailing evan@gun.lawyer. The information and opinions in this broadcast do not constitute legal advice. Consult a licensed attorney in your state.